Hi, so this is a review of the new Astrolux EA01. So this is a 26650 sized light, also runs on a 21700 or an 18650. Comes with the adapters. It does come with a short body tube as well to allow you to run it on an 18350 or a 26350 battery, so it'd be about this length. I haven't bothered bringing that out. I don't have any batteries for that, and I kind of struggle to see the point in that battery tube, to be honest. So this torch is available with two different LEDs. You can get it with a Cree XHP 50.2, or in this case we've got an SST 40. So we're running Anduril UI on here. I've measured the tail caps on this one. In the high mode it's pulling about 4.2 amps, 4.4 amps. And in turbo we're pulling about 8.2 amps. The XHP50 would be pulling a lot more. I just can't see the point in the small battery tube with this kind of emitter and driver. You're just going to blunt performance and have really low run times. So this particular torch, we've got a big tier optic. I don't know if you can see it very well with the camera light there. So it's not a reflector. It's not a multi-emitter light, it's a single emitter light, but we've got a large tier optic. In fact, this is the largest tier optic I've got in my collection. Nice things are, it makes it quite a compact torch. As you can see, it's really nice, fits in the hand well, will fit in your pocket well, and because we've got a tier optic, the head is quite short. If it was a reflector light, this would probably need to be, I don't know, half an inch wider and probably an inch longer to get the same performance from it. So let's fire it up and let's see what it can do. So those familiar with the Anduril user interface, I know we've got an electronic switch. It's illuminated on this one. You can program it to do lots of different things, which, you know, if you're interested in that, just go and hit it up on Google. But basically a long press will turn it into moonlight mode, which it does, and then you can just ramp it up very quickly to its top mode. So that's the highest output on the normal ramping mode. And something I'd really like to say, this is the 5000K version, and the tint is really nice. As you lower it down, when you get to really low modes, it tends to warm up a little bit more. But it's really nice. I think even on the camera here, it's looking really good. With this tier optic, if we just shine it at the ground, so lower the output out a little bit. You see, we get a hot spot, and we do get a spill beam, but it's quite small. I'll get another flashlight out in the moment just to sort of show that. But the spill beam on this is sort of like 1/4 of the size of a reflector light. But like many tier optics, just ramp it back up again, you do seem to get light that comes out almost sideways from it. So you can see it's just enough light in front of me just to sort of see where I'm walking, but it's not really a spill beam. But what it does do is it gives you this really nice big sort of fat beam. Now this thing isn't a dedicated thrower, and I think there are people who might want, you know, to swap in one of the Osram LEDs into this and turn them into a little pocket thrower, but they become quite sort of one-use lights. But I have to say, I really like the beam on this. I mean, we've got a large tree down there, and look at how well that's lighting it up, and it's lighting the whole thing up. But because we've got quite a dull spill beam, it's not lighting up everything to the sides of it, it's just lighting up where you're pointing it. But if we shine it down the path, there's plenty of light to walk by, and even close up. If I get really close, the hotspot's quite intense, but just move it a little bit away. Can you see how it's not blindingly bright, but somehow it's got that incredible throw at the same time? I think it's officially rated at 98,000 CD, so I'd sort of put this in the sort of semi-thrower category, because it is quite compact. I mean, you know, this is a single cell torch that's going to fit in your pocket, super easy. And I'm just really liking this beam profile. I think it's really versatile. and it just, you can light up what you point it at, but you haven't got that great big spill beam, which sometimes you want from a reflector light. But I'm liking this. I think this is a good general purpose light. One thing I would say, as good as this UI and driver setup can be, turbo is sucking a lot more amps, but it's not massively brighter. So we're just on the high mode still here. So if I just kick it up to turbo, now it just flickered. I mean, this is a good battery in here, it's fully charged. It's a Samsung 40T 21700, and I say it's measuring well over 8 amps, but all it's doing is getting a bit hotter. Visually, I'm not really sure it makes a huge difference. Yeah, I kind of question whether we really want to have that mode on here. Another wonderful trait of Andrew is, even though I've done nothing more than turn it on and try and put it into turbo, we've now gone into some sort of stepped mode, which is just one of my bugbears with this UI. Is it does a lot of nice things, but it's a real pain in the arse. Let's just see if we can sort this out and come back to the review. And we're back. Wow, that was a bit of an effort. So I don't quite know what happened to the UI there. As you can see, I'd had it all on video. I'd done nothing untoward, but somehow it had altered the programming on itself. But if you unscrew the towel cap and then hold down the on switch and screw it back on, it will go into like a dazzly blinky mode and then one bright flash, and it should have reset itself, which is what we've had to do. It's a real shame. I think this UI is definitely a bit of a Marmite thing at the moment. I do like the moonlight from off. I like the ramping up and down. I like the turbo mode. Everything else about it is horrendously ghastly and just so irritating. Hopefully the guys will get together and sort it out one of these days. But anyhow, on this particular flashlight, we've got what we've got. But yeah, just going back to this light, we've got USB charging on it as well. It's just nice. I haven't seen the XHP50 in person. I've seen some videos. I think the hotspot on that is giant. It makes a lot more lumens. We're getting people claiming, you know, they're making in excess of 5,000 lumens out of that. But it won't have the throw that this has. And I think that's really the appeal of this, is it's just a really good general purpose light. And if you just have it at the top of the ramp mode rather than turbo, it doesn't overheat. This battery will run it for ages at this output level, and you can just use it. I would have to say this is fast becoming one of my favourite lights, and I've only had it a couple of days. And to that end, I'll show you what my current favourite light is in this class. Right, so I've used this torch in several reviews before. I've owned it a long time, just to give a size comparison. You can see it's similar sized, a little bit longer, a little bit wider, and that's because we've got a reflector in there. But this is my go-to outdoor torch. This is a 4.7's MMU. It uses an SST 90, which is a big old LED. Now this is a few years old, and believe it or not, I think it was only rated at 800 lumens, which has to be wrong when you'll see that when I turn it on. But it's just been a really solid performer. But do you know what? I think that EA01 is going to supplant this one as my go-to light. So one nice thing with this 4.7's light, the UI is really simple. It's got a momentary switch at the back, and you push it once for high, let go, push it again for low, and that's it. And if you want the light to turn on, you just screw the cap down. There is no way to accidentally program it. As you can see, there's no way this thing is 800 lumens, but do you see what I mean about this spool beam? It's huge. So up close, I'll put it in low mode. it's got a much bigger spill beam, but you don't get that light coming out of it sort of sideways that you do from the tear optic. But because you've got that spill beam, it's nice to walk with. And you see it lights up the area pretty well. But if we shine it down at that tree down there, I can just make it out, but this doesn't reach it. And that's why I classify that new EA01 as sort of a semi-thrower. You know, there's obviously lights out there that throw a lot more than 98,000 CD. But for something that size, with that usable beam, I think that's pretty good going. And just to keep on going with the comparisons, I didn't quite know what to compare it to, but this is again a similar sort of overall size. We've got a head sort of chunky with one cell body, although a lot slimmer. But this is longer because it's a reflector light. So this is actually a BLF edition Kronos X6, which was a sort of a custom made light for the forum, based on the Eagle Eyes X6. So in here we've got an XPL HI running the BLF 17DD driver. So this thing goes direct drive when you turn it on, and with the smooth reflector in this LED, it throws quite well. And it's a good light, it's a good light. But again, if we shine down at the tree down there, can we see two things? One, it's not lighting up as well as that EA01 is. And two, what it is lighting up is a much smaller area. You know, we were lighting up sort of the whole tree with that big fat beam of that SST40 with that tear optic. And yeah, we've got the spill beam on this, and this is a good torch. There is nothing wrong with this at all. But pretty much in every category, that EA01 beats it. And I think that just shows how far these things have come. So my final comparison light is another Astrolux light. This is the MF01 Mini. Right, my hand's getting a bit numb. We're freezing conditions out here. Must be about 0 degrees or -1. It's all frosty on the ground. So the reason I've picked this as a comparison is, as you can see, they're practically the same torch. We've got some slight machining differences on the EA01, but they are, you know, sisters or brothers. The difference being that the MF01 Mini has got 7 SST20s and small tear optics rather than a single emitter and a big optic. But just to sort of show you what the beam comparison is like between them, I thought it was worth bringing them both out. So the Mini's running the same Anduril UI. It is a different driver, but it works exactly the same way as the EA01. As you can see, because we've got lots of tear optics, let's just lower this thing down a bit. We either don't have a hotspot and it's all spill beam, or it's just one big hotspot with no spill beam. I'll let you make your own minds up on that one. But this is definitely a floody light. This is a cooler white. The camera white balance is actually correcting that quite nicely tonight. But it certainly doesn't have such a good tint. I think it was 5,700K. Might have been 6,000 something. I can't remember now. The only thing is, it does get a little bit green. Again, you won't see it on the camera, but definitely if you're indoors and you've got it on the lower light levels, it does have a real sort of tint shift to it. This is a good light. And on high, you can see, look, we've got a nice big flood area, but it's not reaching out to that big tree. You can see the smaller tree there, but the big tree is almost invisible. I'll pump it up to turbo. You can just see we're getting that big tree in there now. Don't get me wrong, this thing is impressive. We've got a lot of light coming out here. We've got the same type of battery in here. It's a Samsung 40T 21700. And I mean, I don't know what sort of amps this is pulling on this. Got to be over 16 amps. Might be up towards 20 amps. Definitely gets hot very quickly. And I think that's the problem with this one, is it's impressive on turbo mode, but it gets too hot too quick. And in fact, it even gets hot on the normal high mode, even out here in freezing temperatures. You know, this is kind of a wow light, but I just find it's actually not so good, because when you dim it down to sort of walk with, actually looking at stuff further away, you can see we've got a green sign there. You know, that's not that far away, but it looks bright close up, but it's barely reaching that sign. So you have to sort of pump it right up there. I think it's got uses, but being all flood, if you were to use this in more of a built up area, you're going to annoy people. Whereas that EA01, it just lights up enough that you can walk with it easy. Look at that. So, you know, you can still see the foreground. Lights up that sign brilliant, and without having to change outputs, we're lighting up that big tree down there. This thing is really, really versatile. So if you're on the fence, I'd recommend this one. Just a shame about the UI, but you know, we can live with that.